My next guest lived and worked as a journalist in Iraq for 7 years, catching a first-hand look at the Iraqi insurgency during his time overseas. Veteran journalist Michael Ware is with us now. Michael, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Congratulations. The documentary airs tonight.
Yes, tonight on HBO.
Tell us about this amazing journey you've had.
Well, you know, it was a long and tough one. I was in Iraq, as you say, for 7 years from before the invasion, and I witnessed the birth of what we now call the Islamic State. I saw it created in those first weeks after the invasion. Now, it's had 4 different name changes and 4 different leaders, but that's when it began. And you know, I had the misfortune of the house we were living in was literally 2 blocks away from the first car bombing they ever did in August 2003. And sometime later, I was kidnapped by them, and they prepared me for my beheading, and they were going to use my camera to film it, which I thought was a little bit rude.
Did things get a lot worse when the U.S. pulled out of Iraq?
Not really. I mean, I know this is a political football here in the United States.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, well, there's 2 things to be said. Firstly, the withdrawal timetable was actually drawn up by the Bush administration under what's called the Status of Forces Agreement with the Iraqi government. So in one sense, even if the Obama administration had wanted to leave a residual force of troops behind, it was already excluded from doing that under this agreement.
But President Obama did not do a Status of Forces agreement.
No, because it was already done by the Bush administration. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is that it's an Iranian-backed Iraqi government, and they don't want us there. So even if we'd requested to leave forces, even if we'd tried to negotiate it into the agreement, they did not want us there. Because let's not forget, who won the Iraq war? It was Iran.
Right.
And the Iraqi government, you know, came to be in those first US-backed elections. Well, every faction of the Iraqi government is a political party that was either formed in Tehran, is either armed or funded by Tehran, or even like the Kurds, who by necessity of geography must maintain a long-standing relationship with Iran. The Iranian ambassador in Baghdad pulled more strings in the Iraqi government than any influence we could have ever exerted. And that's just the fact of life. And ultimately, that contributed enormously to the rise and rebirth of the Islamic State. Because, you know, the Iranian control and the sectarian policies of this Iranian-backed government targeting the Sunnis is what added fuel to the fire of the Islamic State.
You watched this from the inception.
Yeah.
You've seen it progress. Have you seen it peak?
No, I don't think so. I mean, certainly, there was a point where the Islamic State was on the back foot. There was one moment in time. You know, the Sunni insurgents who we'd been fighting for 4 years, the Bush administration finally cut a deal with them and put 107,000 insurgents on the US government payroll. We called that the Tribal Awakening Program. Not only did that end the insurgency at that point, but the other thing that it did is that the next morning the Islamic State woke up dead. Because we didn't know where they slept, but the insurgents did.
How come they got so strong and what seems to be at their strongest in the last 7 years?
Well, that's because of this Iraqi government. These fellows who we were fighting, and then they became our allies and we empowered them, almost immediately the Iraqi government went after them, arresting their leaders, killing them, taking them away in the dead of night. So all the work that we'd done was completely undone. And the next thing that we see is once the withdrawal finally takes place, we see the Islamic State rise almost from the ashes and launch a blitzkrieg across the Middle East. And let's not forget what the Islamic State has done. They have created a new nation state. They've redrawn the borders
with its own economy.
Its own capital with Raqqa?
Right, with you know, its own courts, its own police forces. They pay the teachers, they pay the garbage collectors. If you look at all the necessary criteria for defining a nation state, they meet it.
But they pay it by extorting other people and collecting quote-unquote taxes. I mean,
they're taxing, and don't forget, you know, there's oil revenue, which we tried to put a crimp upon.
Yep.
But they have all
human trafficking, right?
Yes, and the selling on the black market of antiquities. But there's all sorts of ways that they're raising money. You know, it's normal taxation.
Yeah, hey, they robbed the central bank.
You know, exactly. But you know, taxes, you know, income tax, the whole 9 yards.
Unbelievable.
So, someone eventually has to go in there and fight and die to roll that back. The question is, who's it going to be? Unbelievable. Really a fascinating story, and the most unbelievable is that it's real. Yes. Michael, thank you. We will watch your documentary tonight. Michael Ware, thanks.